Hello and welcome to the Menterprise podcast, your pocket guide to mindset, motivation and mentorship.
So Nina, we've got a great guest on today, someone that I've actually been speaking to every week now for a couple of months.
Really?
A girl called Mel Lewis. So she runs a business called IGM in Fort Lauderdale in the States. And she's a really inspiring kind of lady that's got some incredible records in the sales field, runs a great business that's now kind of expanding across the States. And one of the reasons I really wanted to get her onto the show was her, I suppose, aggression towards being successful, her grit, determination. She's a really kind of powerful, woman in this industry, and I think it's going to be a really thought-provoking interview today. Yeah,
well, I actually reached out to her a few months back because she's an expert in event sales in the US, and what I learned is that she saw a gap in her industry where she was doing a part of event kind of organisation that the rest of the companies she was associated with weren't doing. So she was like, well, if no one else is doing it well, why don't I offer this as a service? And you're like, wow, okay, what an entrepreneur. So kind of taking advantage of things. So I'm interested to see what she says.
Thinking outside the box, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Amazing. I'm happy to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, look, you've got a really interesting story, because I know that you kind of came from a very different kind of field that you were training for into direct sales. So I think for our listeners, we'd love to kind of hear from, how you got involved, why you got involved. So yeah, how did that happen?
I'll try to make it as, short but detailed as possible. But my career started back in 2015 as a 19-year-old community college student. Mm-hmm. I studied political science, minored in communications, and my objective was to be a criminal justice lawyer. I wanted to, help the thousands of people that are wrongfully convicted every year of crimes that they didn't commit. There was lack of DNA testing, skewed testimony, police brutality. Just always really had a passion for debate. And in school and college, I actually did competitive public speech and debate, which we call the Forensics League here. So I did 2 years in high school, and then I did 2 years in college, which I think helped me develop a lot of the skills that I have or possess in being able to, be very persuasive in sales. Sales, I think, was something that was really easy. To me, it was almost like second nature. I, walked into the industry on my first day and I signed up 3 people, and a lot of people, gave me a massive recognition. I was like, why am I getting all this recognition? I'm just doing my job. I thought that's what you're paying me to do. And I think from there, I came into the industry on more so just focused on making a lot of money at 19. Part of the reason why I switched fields from criminal justice is at the time I was working at a retail store where minimum wage in California went up, and I was making the exact same pay as a customer service manager compared to somebody walking in on their first day. Went to my manager at the time, said, hey, I would like a raise. I think it's justifiable. She told me 5 cents. I was like, great, see you later.
So can I just confirm? Because the minimum wage went up, but you were working at a managerial level, they didn't increase your income in relation to that?
100%. And I think it's just because of how old I was. Everybody else was older there, but they did hire a lot of younger employees that were, anywhere from the ages of 18 to 21. So it just made sense on, she told me 5 cents and she probably thought that was something that was good enough. And, it wasn't. So just made my resume, sent it out. And originally I actually applied to a bunch of, places like Gucci, Fendi, Prada, designer retailers. I was like, oh, I have some retail experience. I was like, let me just, go and work at one of these really cool places. And none of them hire you back. You have to have years of experience apparently to work there in retail. So I was like, okay, cool. And then I just had this random call back at the time from Equilibrium. And I was like, what is this? It's direct sales, coming for an interview. It's downtown. I'm like, oh, downtown. That's pretty fancy. Okay, cool. Came in and then did my interview, asked some questions, was like, no idea really what it was about. I knew it had something to do with, nonprofits. Came back for the second interview. And then the second interview, I remember I was offered a position and I sat in front of Brandon and I said, I I don't know if I can do sales. Like, I've never worked in a position of commission. And I think that's always a big question for a lot of people that enter in this business. You know, is this something that I'm going to be able to be successful in? Can I pay my bills? Can I make money? And Brandon told me, he's like, don't worry, I'm going to put you with my best trainer. I was like, okay, sounds good. So then I started my next day, went out with my trainer, I was very hesitant. So got in his car, we drove to the location, and he's already, you know, prepping me. He's like, you know, there's some predispositions about what we do. We stand outside of, you know, stores, etc. And I remember pulling up to a grocery store where there are people that I know potentially that could be coming in and out of the store. And I was like, mortified. I was like, what if somebody sees me? What if somebody sees me? And I'm a bit hesitant at first. And then I see him sign somebody up and I'm like, that's how you do it? Like, people actually do this? I was in disbelief. And then after that, I was like, okay, cool. I almost had like a roll up your sleeves moment, rolled up my sleeves and started pitching people, calling people on over. I got my first sale when my trainer was actually on his lunch break, and I had to like rush him out of his lunch break to help me finish the item because I didn't know what to do. Then the second one, then the third one, he's like, oh, do you want to stay a little later? I was like, yeah, of course. I was like, we're getting sales. And then that was kind of started out part-time and came back and then just was consistently doing sales. And I remember I went on my first road trip, which is where it changed my career from wanting to be just a sales guy into learning how to, you know, develop and train other people. So came back on a road trip where I did like 25 sales and made over $1,500 in a week, which was like my highest paycheck ever. And
bit more than
I
5
came back
cents extra, yeah.
Yeah, more than 5. Well, my first week's paycheck, I still have it saved on my phone just, you know, because I like telling the story and reminiscing. But I saved my highest paycheck that I ever got at that retail job was $657 for working 75 hours of work.
Wow.
And that was after taxes. And my first week doing this job as a 19-year-old, I made $800. I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, no brainer. I'm done with this place.
Yeah.
But I came back from a road trip making $1,500, and I remember Chris Rudge, he did a meeting on, you know, what it's like to build a team. And there was another person in the office that made $1,500, and she had overrides, bonuses, training manager bonuses, crew leader bonuses. And I started to perk up. I was like, wait, if I teach somebody how to do what I can do, that means that I can double my income. I think I'm doing this wrong. And that's where, you know, career started in saying, oh, I'm putting school on the back burner. And I kind of rewired, you know, some of my original goals on wanting to be a criminal justice lawyer, because I had planned on that being the foundation for myself in order to then get into politics in my later years, which would be my 30s or 40s. And now, I kind of rewired that goal opportunity where I thought to myself, hey, if I get really good at learning how to be a great trainer, a good manager, and a business owner, why not create a foundation for myself and a resume over the next, you know, 10 to 15 years, helping other people build their success and running successful companies. And then in my 30s and 40s, start to get into politics and help deliver some real reformation in our criminal justice system with a background of experience.
Great.
So that's where, so got promoted to crew leader, took about 6 months I got promoted in 6 months to crew leader. One of my biggest challenges from training manager to crew leader was learning how to train somebody, because I wanted everyone to just be like me. I was like, just get it. It's really easy. And then from crew leader to assistant owner, that one took me about 1.5 years for promotion. From crew leader to assistant owner, I moved 2 different cities, from San Diego to Tampa, and then from Tampa to Miami. When we moved to Miami, I got promoted to assistant owner in 3 months' time, which was quite quickly. And then I was an assistant owner for 8 months, and I started my company April 15th, 2019. So almost going on 5 years now.
Oh, wow. And then a year later having to deal with a global pandemic. So quite an entry into business life. Yeah. Definitely.
An interesting part of your story, Mel. You said that you started with a bit of a bang, where you mentioned you did 3 sign-ups on your first day. You got recognition, but you thought this was just normal. You know, I just signed up 3 people. And I know that you've got, correct me what the actual dates are, but you've got an amazing record where I think in the last 3 or 4 years, you haven't had a day where you haven't done at least 1 sale. Is that right?
No, so that goes back from when I was working in the field. So my last 0 day in the field was December the 6th, 2015.
Wow.
16. Yeah.
So you're looking about 8 years.
Actually 15, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was where if I didn't have a sale, I was staying out there until 8, 9 o'clock at night.
So where does that, because I would say the average person doesn't have that kind of, I'm not sure if resilience or dedication or grit, maybe determination, as all of them probably. Where does that come from, and how have you managed to kind of harness that to help you be so successful in the sales industry?
I'm competitive. I think it's just the competitive nature in me, but also I think it's more of it's an abundance of small things that are very micro, that are very important to me. And I think for having the scoring streak, it was something that held me accountable, right? It was talked about on a regular basis. Oh, Mel has this scoring streak. Oh, Mel went out, she's on 5 days, 100% scoring. Then it turned into 20. Then it was 50. Then it was 75, 100, 200 days, 300 days, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And I think it just became, part of my reputation. And I think when you have, and over time, even on the hardest day, because some days were easy where I felt like, somebody just walked up to me and signed up. I'm like, oh, that's easy. I'm like, okay, sounds good. I feel like it didn't really even work today. And then the next day, it was like I was fighting for that one donor, fighting for that person out there. I think it just goes back to, to being able to create and develop a mindset for yourself where it does take practice. Being good at something means, you have to practice it 10,000 times or attempt it 10,000 times, redo it 10,000 times. So I think I just told myself every day, I'm like, today is difficult, but tomorrow will be easy. And I just, always thought to myself, like, temporary pain, or it's just a temporary, nuance, or it's a temporary, pain that tomorrow it's going to help me become a better leader, a better trainer, a better salesperson. And, a lot of people were like, just go home, or like, just give up. Like, like it's okay to, not like have the scoring streak forever. But to me, it wasn't necessarily about other people, saying like, oh, it's okay to do those things. I had a certain standard and expectation for myself, and I held that standard and expectation because, if I'm going to ask anybody to go out and stay at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night or not have a 0 day, then I better be the one that also doesn't have a 0 day. And that's just the belief that I had. I can't ask anybody else to do something I'm not willing to do. I can't ask anybody else to say, you need to have 100% scoring every day. Well, that's my reputation. So it's obviously possible, which means you can do it too. If you believe you can, you can.
There's probably a reason why Duolingo have their streak, right? So when you're learning a language, if you do at least a lesson every day, they're like, oh, this many days in a row, well done to you. Because after a while, you're like, I am not dropping this.
Don't want to lose that streak. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, Mel, obviously this has helped you become really successful because you now run an incredible business, and not just one office, but I know actually, well, congratulations, because last month you've opened up a new office in a new city, so well done.
Thank you.
But obviously you've got a recipe that works. So we've got 3 things that we ask our guests, and we call it the 3 M's, which is kind of mindset, motivation, and mentorship. So for you, to Mel Lewis, what's mindset, and how important is that to you?
Yeah, mindset is very important. I think it's probably one of the most important things that, creates a successful individual in business, in life. But mindset to me is about possessing a physically fit mindset, right? It's not something that you just say like, oh, I have a positive mindset. What does that mean, right? You can be positive in 1 second and then be negative in the next 5 minutes. Having a good mindset really comes down to being able to practice mentally and building micro habits to develop positivity through the longevity of your day. There are, times where, it's easy to be like this morning, I just remember getting ready and I was going for a rubber band and the bag exploded and I kind of just laughed at it. But, depending at, where my attitude would have been, I could have easily got frustrated. I'm like, oh my God, I have to pick up all these rubber bands. This is so annoying. And if I then let, fester into that annoyance, then that, outlines the rest of my day. When I come to my office, now small things are agitating. And I think that more often than not, people like to practice and say I have a good mindset. Okay, you can have a good mindset right now, but what are the small habits that you do on a daily basis to actually build that mindset long term over the next, 24 hours, over the next week, over the next month, over the next year, over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15, 25 years. So I think it's really about rewiring that mind, rewiring your thoughts on a daily basis, because those become the words, your actions, your habits, your lifestyle, your destiny, and then so on and so forth.
Because mindset isn't something that you're taught in school, especially over here, or college or university. So I'm interested, is this something that since you joined the industry that your mindset has really kind of grown and developed, or is this something that you've had growing up from other people?
So I think the way that I think was very developed based on the two coaches that I had from my speech and debate career, or my speech and debate life. When I walked into this industry, to me, I thought it was like a cakewalk almost when I was like, oh, we do these impacts. My coaches, the way that they trained me and my colleagues and from the team, they would have us, we would do trainings every day of the week. On Saturdays and Sundays, you were there for 8 to 10 hours. And we were there practicing our pitches over and over and over and over and over again. If you messed up one time, they're like, that's not good enough. And it was superior conditioning to then train us to be number one. And, there would be multiple times where we would be training saying, do you want to win second place? Because if you're winning second place, you're not winning, right? It's, you walk into a competition to always get first. And that's the type of training and the mindset that I walked into, where, okay, great, I'm in a sales environment. I'm here to win, right? I'm not here to be the person at the bottom of the food chain or the person in the middle. I'm here to win, which means that, I'm here to build a reputation for myself, to stand out, but also, no one's getting a trophy here and there. To me, it was like, oh, you get trophies based on being able to get promoted. So a lot of that mindset, I think, came from my two coaches that I'm very thankful for, because they taught me, a lot about self-discipline. They taught me a lot about, having a mentality to never give up, to never quit, to continue to try again. If you fall, you get back up again.
That's great. Send them a bottle of wine. Yeah, well done to them.
Right.
So our second M is all about motivation. So I'd love to kind of find out kind of what motivates Mel, but also what kind of part has that played in you achieving what you've achieved so far? So
motivation to me, it's a temporary feeling. I think a lot of people confuse motivation with like saying that, like, oh, I'm motivated. Like, again, you can't be motivated 100% of the time, but it's a feeling that you get when you're about to achieve something. I'm actually currently reading this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he talks a lot about, and he talks a lot about how, motivation, it's a feeling, but in order to maintain it long term, you have to continue to keep evolving. So if I start off with a goal and I'm about to hit that goal, and I know I'm near hitting the goal, whether it's, 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months away, I already start thinking about my next 3 goals, because I'm trying to keep that, dopamine level on, oh, okay, perfect. I have a goal in mind, which is what's keeping me motivated on driving me into that direction. But now I need 3 more goals, because I'm about to hit that goal. So once I hit it, that curve is going to, fall. And then now my motivation is going to spiral downward, which is then going to cause me to, feel like, oh, I'm stagnant. I'm in the exact same place. So I'm constantly thinking about, what are the next 3 goals that I need to achieve once I hit that one, or I'm in a near range of accomplishing that goal. And I think that's how you're able to maintain, maintain a line where you're not, going back and forth or ups and downs. A lot of people in their career have ups and downs. Oh, I'm really, really, on a high right now. My career is doing amazing. Or, I'm going down, I'm spiraling because I think that things are out of control. I think that's, one of the biggest reasons why I've been able to, maintain, a constant line in my career. And same thing, from also with looking back at the scoring streak, is that, it's constant. And I think that that's what motivation looks like to me. Is I just kept saying, okay, great. If I make it to 100 days, okay, great. How about 300 days? How about a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then so on and so forth. But
they say that a lot about athletes, like, if they're working towards a huge competition, like you think about the Olympics, it's only every 4 years. And if you're only ever thinking about the Olympics until the day that you say you pick up a medal and it's gold, fantastic. But then after that, apparently there's that crash, isn't there, where you're like, now what? Like, we've had friends that have got married recently, and there's like the wedding depression afterwards, where you're like, well, the weddings happen now. That's probably why people have a honeymoon afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. So even like personally, I'll share. I think it's about the discipline again that bridges the gap between the motivation and the goals. I just recently started where I did a 30-day no social media cleanse. I'm on day 21, I believe, and I halfway, like 2 or 3 days ago, I started thinking about. I'm like, okay, this is almost over. I need to think of 3 new goals. So I said, okay, great. I did 30 days, no social media. I survived. I'm going to do 30 days, no alcohol. Then I'm going to do 30 days, no social media and no alcohol. Then I'm going to do 30 days where, I am, purposely on a budget for some reason. I'm like, because I think nowadays when you look at it, I'm just like, okay, cool. I want that. I'm going to go buy it. Like, I don't really think twice about things. So now I'm going to force myself to, have to practice on like being a budget. People ask me, why do you do those things? Well, I'm practicing self-discipline. I'm trying to teach myself, and learning different things and unlocking different levels of, techniques or trainings. And I think it's all goes back into, how to be a better leader, how to be a better mentor, how to teach more people on the lessons that you've been able to learn a lot faster.
I think that's a great point, because we never hear many people training discipline. It's often I'm disciplined or I'm not, or I want to get better, but actually not many people actually set themselves goals to become more disciplined. So I love that. I'm gonna write that one down, Mel. Thanks very much.
One of our team's been trying to become a morning person, and she's like, I've never been one. So what she's been doing is running into work or something to have a shower there, because she was like, then I've got to be in by a certain time, and it's forcing her to be a morning person. So yeah, she's putting herself in a situation where if she's not disciplined, she's going to look like a mess.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
It's quite funny because I never was a morning person. And when I started working out, I was that person that would binge sleep, on Saturday and Sunday. If I didn't have anything to do, I'm sleeping like 15 hours. I can still sleep 15 hours straight. You can't wake me up. I'm that person that I can fall asleep absolutely anywhere. But when I started working out about 1.5 years ago, I wake up at 4 a.m. every day. I love it.
Wow. That is early.
Yeah.
That is discipline.
That's
extreme discipline. Yeah. And then the final ML is about kind of mentorship, right? So from your kind of point of view, I'm sure you've grown up in this industry and you've had lots of mentors and you've mentored other people. But from your experience now, what makes a great mentor?
Yeah, so I think what makes a great mentor, it's very similar to the question, what makes a good leader, right? Everyone has different types of qualities that make a good leader that makes a good mentor. I think me personally, for what makes a good mentor is somebody who listens. I think you have to be able to listen to understand and not necessarily listen to preach. But I think it does start off with, knowing that, hey, I can come to you and you're going to listen to, what I have to say. You're going to listen to, all parts of the story, and, kind of just also letting that person vent, but at the same time being able to provide honest feedback, telling them like, hey, maybe you could have handled the situation a little bit better. Hey, maybe, I wouldn't necessarily have handled that situation. And I think it's somebody that, explains both sides of oh, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but maybe you should have done this. And I think that probably the number one thing for me is someone who listens. And then I also wrote down on here is, the whole kicker and cuddler approach is that people don't really know how much you care until you show them. And sometimes I think mentors or leaders can think that, well, I have to take a harsh approach with this person because they have a very, direct personality or an aggressive personality, or there's somebody that's, just very direct. And I think that's, the difference between some of my current mentors or business colleagues that I would go to for advice, where I say, great, you're my mentor and my colleague, but I wouldn't necessarily classify you as, my best mentor to necessarily gain information from. Is I think it really is about what you say, not how you say it, and how much time you take to get to know them, as well as to listen to what they have to say.
Great advice.
So on that, so you mentioned about mentors that you've got and the advice, I'm sure, over the past nearly, 8 years that you've been in this industry, right? Is there any advice that you've been given that you still kind of carry today that you kind of live by?
Yeah. So there's one piece of advice that I received when I went actually to the UK for the very first time back in 2016 for an owners meeting. And it stuck with me ever since then. And I've always, every time in my career that I've always thought about, this is really, really hard. Should I just give up? And I've always thought to myself, I'm like, it's never personal. It's always just business.
And it's so easy though, isn't it, to take things very personally. It's also when you're
is
working
easy,
hard,
yes.
emotions are high, and we work in a performance-based business, so often we can be in stressful kind of situations. So have you got any ways that you do separate kind of it's not personal, it's business?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my good mentors recently, actually great mentors, his name's Rob. He actually told me not too long ago, rather than saying, why is this happening to me? What is this trying to teach me? And I think that's really, helped take that first statement of saying it's not personal, it's just business, into a different limelight of where I'm at in my career. And now rather than saying, it's not personal, it's just business, and kind of trying to brush it off the shoulder and get back up again, I more so think about, what are the lessons behind why is this happening to me, and how can I prevent this from happening to me again in the future? Because prevention is 90% of the cure. So rather than looking at it as in, build that tough mindset, build that tough mentality, I think I already do that on a day-to-day basis. It's more about, creating the preventable measures and becoming a better business owner, becoming a better mentor, and learning from other people's mistakes and saying, that's great on, maybe that's your coaching style or your critique, but that doesn't necessarily have to be my coaching style or my technique to, my future team or my staff members.
I suppose one of the things that over my career, I've had lots of things that I've done that maybe people don't see, and we call it the shit that no one sees, right? And it's things that kind of go, the unsung hero, the unsung skill that you don't normally talk about, people don't see.
Yeah.
Or habits, yeah. Is there anything that you do, Mel, that goes a little bit unseen or kind of unpromoted that's really kind of helped you succeed?
I think one thing that goes unseen is, and I think probably that I started this recently, or not recently, but actually I'll say two things. The first one is I'm always the first one at the office, and I'm always the last one at the office. Same thing for, when I was in the field building my team, I was always the first one in the office, with the owner of the company saying, how can I help you? What can I do to help? I've always been that person to, want to learn every part of the industry, every part of the business, and know everything about it. I think that's really what separates people who are successful in their careers compared to, other people who say like, oh, I'm really good at sales, but, I struggle with, training and building people. I think you have to be able to know that it takes time to develop certain skills, but having the quality of having that student mindset and, wanting to get better every day, eventually it's going to catch up with you. And I recently just started jujitsu, and it teaches me so many lessons in business, self-discipline on a daily basis that, I'm grateful for, because I think it helps me become a better business owner and a better mentor. One of my lessons that, I learned this week in jujitsu was about, defense. And, when you're defending yourself, you always, turn into your attacker. And, I think for a lot of people, they're taught, you actually run away from your attacker. And it teaches different strategies. And, it's like, okay, what does that mean? For me in a business and explaining it to my team, it's like, something's going to be hard. You're always going to face hard challenges in life, but it's about how you address that challenge. Are you always going to run away from it? Because that same problem is just then going to turn up with different people, different situations, multiple times until you address it. Yeah. So it might be hard right now, but if you do it today or tomorrow, it'll be a lot greener on the other side. And that goes where the saying is, you may think it's greener on the other side, but it's greener where you water it.
True, yeah.
So, but if we're going into like a micro thing on a habit basis, I do think it starts with, making your bed. I always make my bed every single day before I go to work. I think making your bed, having like a nice ready bed when you get home, it's like perfect. You can just dive in. A micro habit also too is I don't watch TV. I'm more of a music person. I have music always playing in the background, where it's, I kind of just, it's, I know that when I walk in or I have certain types of music, it's like, this is showtime. Like I'm on performance. I'm on, I don't like silence unless, I want just peaceful thoughts that are just to myself.
Great. And you mentioned this kind of jiu-jitsu that you started recently, but you also mentioned you get up at 4:30 in the morning. You also mentioned that you're first in the office, out the office. And everyone, a lot of people these days ask these questions about how do I get a balance? How do I get this work-life balance? And often my response is, well, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, it's very difficult. It's, if you want this 9-to-5 balance, you should maybe be going for entrepreneurship. So how do you kind of create the balance, or how do you explain that to your people?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. Honestly, people ask that to me very often when I say I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, I love it. Like, I think it's amazing. I'm like, you wake up at 7 o'clock and I've already been awake for 3 hours. Do you know how much more stuff I've already done? And so I wake up at 4, I go to the gym at 5, come back home at 6, walk my nice dog, Benji. Then I get to work at about 8, leave work about 4:35, go home, make lunch, walk my dog again. And then I go home to jujitsu from 6:30 to 8 p.m., come back, make dinner. And then, just kind of listen to music, unwind. And then usually I'm in bed by like 10 o'clock, almost 11. So I leave off like 5.5, almost 6 hours of sleep every day. And a lot of people ask me, typically saying, is it having 5 or 6 hours of sleep? How can you survive off that? I'm like, I survive perfectly fine. I think it's really just comes down to what your lifestyle is. I honestly, during the week, I don't drink at all. And that's part of the reason why I said, no social media, no drinking. And then cutting out both. I think it's about the lifestyle that you're living, on why people say, oh, I need work-life balance. What about hanging out with your friends? I'm like, my Fridays and Saturdays are extremely fun. I'm like, I go out and hang out with my friends. I travel whenever I want. I think it really just comes down to what's important to you. I know that I can be able to say, if my friend called me, saying, hey, I got an extra ticket. Will you come to this concert with me in Chicago? It's in 2 days. I'm like, oh, great. I'm an entrepreneur. I can make my own schedule. Of course I can come. And, I can put everything on hold, rearrange things in my office, and then go to a trip. That's called a work-life balance. I think work-life balance means being able to have, options. What's an option on saying that, if you're presented with an opportunity, will you take it, or do you pass it up because you say, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I think I don't know if I can, go because I don't have any money right now, or I don't know if I can, call out for work. That's not a work-life balance. Work-life balance is being able to make your own decisions at any given time. And I think that, I'm able to do that with the lifestyle that I live. And I think it also comes down to, what you find important in your individual life. Like, for a lot of people, they'll say, oh, I don't want to do, martial arts. I don't want to do, waking up at 4. I don't want to go to the gym every day. Well, that's not your life that you're living. That's my life. That's my purpose. That's what I like about, what I do. And that's my work-life balance. I recently just started reading this book called Ikigai, where it talks about, it's about the Japanese proverb and culture, knowing about what purpose is in life, because the Japanese are historically known for living some of the longest individuals in the world. And 2 journalists, interview collectively this community, and they ask them, why do you think that, your culture lives longer than others, or specifically, why Japanese, or, just in general? And they say it's because of, we know our purpose. We know that we never want to stop working, because we always we have a student mindset. We're working towards a new goal. We're working towards something that, motivates us and inspires us. And, I read that. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. I never see myself ever, not working. I think about my career. Great. I want to, continue to build offices and organization and do this until I'm 40. And, at 40, I want to, get, emerge into politics. From 40 to 60, perfect. I want to be, involved in politics. And then I told myself, I'm like, when I'm 60, what's my next goal? Because I talk a lot about 40 to 60, but what do I want to do when I'm 60 to 80? I was like, you know what? I want to be a CEO of $1 billion company when I'm 60 to 80.
Do you know
so
what, Mel?
I think it's just about, you said what?
I can really kind of see here. You create this balance because you know exactly what you want to get out of what you're doing. So by using this discipline, you've managed to create a lifestyle that motivates you, but you're using that to kind of, it makes you happy, so it works, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I know we've got one last question that kind of Nina's got.
Yeah, so I suppose we've asked everyone this, and it's so interesting to see how everyone who's been successful in their own rights has prioritised their values. What are the core values that you hold yourself accountable to?
I am a terrible liar. Like, I cannot lie at all. It like eats me up. And I think that's part of the reason why, a lot of people say you're so direct, you're almost too direct. It's like, well, do you want me to lie to you? Because I mean, I can lie to you, but I mean, I don't see the purpose. I'd much rather just be very, clear if I like it, if I don't like it. I think honesty is very important when it comes to, leadership, but also leading others as well, too. And just having the integrity behind it, right? People want to know that you're truthful in what you're saying and if it's actually real or not. I think, and that's too where my social media cleanse comes from, is that looking at social media and submerging yourself in on a day-to-day basis. I often question, I'm like, is this real? Is this really real? Like, is this person look like this? Do you really have all of these things? Did you really do that? And I just needed to step back for a second and say that, I think it comes down to, so many successful people generations ago, there was no social media. There was none of that. If you take it all away, what are you left with? Well, you're left with raw connections with real people on a day-to-day basis and genuine friendships where they call and check on you and they say, hey, are you okay? What's new with you? Hey, do you want to grab coffee? Do you want to go grab lunch? And I think that means more to me than just saying, okay, I'm going to like your photo. Cool. Yeah, second thing is, goal orientation. I want to be able to, like, what's important to me is, being able to have a vision. I think that, if there's no vision, then there's no purpose. What's the purpose behind the person? There truly is something to be learned from every single person that you meet. And I always strive to find out what it is. What are you going to teach me today? Even in every single interview, I ask, where are you from? Tell me about your city. If it's a random place, tell me what you like about your hobbies. Yeah. Tell me something that I don't know. I want to learn from you. And I think that's really one thing that stands out on the way that I run my company. And people ask me, why Innovating Great Minds? Why that name? One of my all-time favorite book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, is that it's all about, you surround yourself with other people who are successful and you'll naturally become one of those people. I look at my company as almost a mastermind group. I'm looking for individuals who are motivated, who possess different types of qualities that, we can all learn from each other and continue to help each other grow. And I think that's really important. And that's one of my biggest values.
Great.
Brilliant. Mel, that was fantastic. I think that was a really thought-provoking conversation there. And I love your intensity,
awesome.
How goal-orientated you are. And I love the fact that, like I said earlier, you sound like you really know what you want and you've got it completely dialed, which is making you happy and making you perform. So thanks for jumping on. Good luck with the rest of the social media cleanse and the alcohol cleanse next month, I believe.
And the jiu-jitsu. I mean, we've actually got one of our kind of business owners as part of our organisation. He's recently started jiu-jitsu as well. And he said that that's also teaching him kind of like things that are helping him in his business. So it's interesting that you said that you're, using, inspiration from that, because, he's doing exactly the same.
And what I've kind of also going to write down is turn into your attacker. I like that.
Yeah, face the problem.
Turn into your attacker. You have to face your problems. You have to face your challenges. And I think even where it says, like sometimes like in martial arts, there is no, okay, well, be the bigger person. There is no be bigger person. You either win, you either fight or you die, right? And it's that type of mentality. And taking it, dialing it down, obviously, very extensively. When you look at it from a business perspective, it's those problems are never going to go away that you have with that person. So either you learn to work with them, you either learn to work through them, or you just stop working with them, which in a sense, if you stop working with them means that you lost because now you're backing down, right? Technically in a fight. So I think it's just more about learning how to, different strategies to work around maybe difficult people, or learning how to work around challenges in your life, and that also make you better. And I think when I walk into, jujitsu every day, I'm like, I suck. And I'm like, that kills me. Absolutely kills me to the bone. And I tell myself every day when I walk in there, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Yeah. And every day I'm practicing self-discipline. I will eventually get better. And I don't think I'm good today, maybe not tomorrow, but maybe next month, maybe in 3 months, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 12 months, maybe in 1 year, maybe in 2 years. It doesn't matter. I know that if I'm not good today, I'll eventually be good at some point in time. It's just going to add up. It's about the hours. It's about the dedication, the discipline, and going back every single day and forcing myself mentally and creating that mental mindset of saying that just because you're not good at something today doesn't mean you won't be good at it tomorrow.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, because I know it's the middle of the day there in Florida as well. So
yeah, no worries.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. And
yeah, thank you guys for having us, or me.
Oh, pleasure.
We'll catch up soon. Thanks, Mel.
Cool. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Wow. Okay, so Mel definitely is driven and clearly, wants to be disciplined, but clearly is.
Yeah, there's discipline and there's Mel's discipline. I think, at 4 a.m. starts.
Next level.
First, she's in the gym, she's walking the dog, she's in the office first, out of the office first, and she's going to walk in the dog, then she's back in the gym.
I won't complain about Theo waking me up at 5 a.m. anymore.
I can't complain about anything, but I think that was a really great chat, actually, to see the mindset of someone that's kind of really young like Mel, but that's become really successful in a short space of time.
Yeah.
Just to see kind of what makes it tick. And I kind of mentioned a couple of times there is, I think she's really found her why and why she's running this business and what it's going to do for in the future. Because she mentioned, she wants to become, she said in so many years she wants to get into politics, and she's got this kind of just goal and this kind of North Star that she's working towards, which I think allows her to be this disciplined person.
Yeah,
it's great.
Because we were speaking to Greg, who people will hear from on another episode, but he was talking about those 3 things that motivate people, and what struck me from Mel is purpose. Because she loved the fact that she got to work with charities because of the social kind of capital that she's creating from the work that she does. That stemmed from what she was studying when she was doing the social injustice stuff. So clearly she wants to make a difference, and she's doing everything that will lead to that path. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I think we're going to have to get her on again in the future for a part 2. Yeah, great interview.
Amazing. Thank you very much for listening to the Menterprise podcast. We want to give some recognition to people that have made this happen. We want to thank Luke and the rest of his team at Access Creative College, who have given us access to these fantastic facilities, and also to Edward Collis Films for all things to do with videography.